The following program is furnished by The Truth About Your Future, LLC. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of this station. This information is education and not financial advice. Sponsors of the program pay a fee to be interviewed. See the truthayf.com disclosure page for details. Consult a financial advisor before investing.
The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman is brought to you by Global X ETFs, dedicated to providing investors with unexplored and intelligent solutions. And by Bitwise, a trusted guide in crypto has never mattered more. Connect with their dedicated team of crypto experts nationwide at bitwiseinvestments.com. And by Invesco QQQ, a fund that allows you to access the innovators of the NASDAQ 100, Invesco.com. And by Edelman Financial Engines. Rick Edelman is a board member, consultant, shareholder, and client of EFE, but EFE is unaffiliated and has no say over the content of The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman.
This is where technology, innovation, and personal finance come together.
This is The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman.
And now your host, Rick Edelman.
And a happy weekend to you in this holiday season. On today's show, the future of copper prices. There isn't a Bitcoin ETF yet. Mental decline and managing your money. Alzheimer's and caregivers. And how do you tip people when you don't carry cash? Plus, our weekly health and wellness segment with my wife, Jean. Welcome to The Truth About Your Future. You know, one of the big issues about our future financially is Social Security. So I want to ask you a simple question. Is it going to be there for you when you reach retirement? Well, half of millennials asked that question. These are people ages 26 to 41. Half of them said no, they are not going to get Social Security. They think the Social Security system is going to collapse and go broke long before they reach retirement. Well, I don't think they're right. I think Social Security will exist in the future. The big question is, how old will you have to be to qualify to get benefit? And what will the benefit be? We know that the Social Security system is in trouble right now because there are too few people working, paying into the system, and too many people retired, taking money out of the system in monthly benefits. The Social Security Trust Fund is going to be broke in about 10 years unless Congress acts. Congress needs to either raise the taxes or reduce or delay the benefits. What's Congress doing? Well, there's a bill right now that would do neither of the above. It won't raise the taxes. It won't lower the benefits. You know what it does? It raises the benefits for government workers. Right now, government workers have a haircut to their Social Security benefit. It's called the windfall elimination provision. It affects 2 million federal employees. There's also the government pension offset, which reduces benefits for spouses and widows of those who worked for the government, those who get a government pension as a spouse or widow. This is another 750,000 people. The bill in Congress would eliminate these features so that government workers and their spouses or widows will get more money from Social Security. I mean, the reason that these features exist is the attitude that you shouldn't double dip. If you're saving money into retirement, like paying into Social Security or paying into a pension, if you're paying into one, you shouldn't get benefits from both. And so these haircuts are designed to acknowledge that you're paying into a government pension. You're not paying into Social Security. And therefore, we're going to give you a haircut on your Social Security benefit to acknowledge your government pension benefit. Now there's a bill in Congress, from a Democrat, of course, saying we want to eliminate these provisions so that government workers are going to get more money from Social Security. Yeah, this will benefit those 2.7 million federal workers, but guess what? It's going to make the Social Security Trust Fund go broke even faster than it otherwise would. The government analysis says it will go broke 1 year faster. It's going to cost Social Security $146 billion over the next 10 years in a very moment when the Social Security system can least afford it. So while we're dealing with an issue of the trust fund being totally depleted anyway, this makes the situation that much worse rather than improving the situation. Congress needs to reduce benefits. It needs to delay benefits or it needs to raise taxes. Increasing the benefits in a time like this? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's fiscally irresponsible. There's a new study from the Journal of the American Medical Association, their publication called Network Open. 7 million seniors have mental declines that might be impacting their financial skills, and yet 75% of them are still managing their own money. This puts our seniors at high risk of making financial mistakes, everything from not paying bills to making risky investment choices. And financial exploitation is a big concern. 8 out of 10 of the people studied in this research did not have detectable cognitive impairment. So you couldn't really tell. 20% of them did. And yet 40% of these people live alone. And when they were interviewed, 15% said it was difficult for them to handle their own money, and yet they're continuing to do it. The crazy part, the scary part, their average assets, $215,000 in stocks. So these people have hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're finding it difficult to manage their affairs, and yet they're still doing it all by themselves. Is it possible that there's somebody you know who might be in this situation? Don't assume that your parents, who have been managing their money their whole lives, are still capable of doing so. Maybe it's time to have a conversation. And if you want to avoid that fate, if you want to make sure that your cognitive skills remain strong, we have new research from the Psychological Science publication. They say that those who play musical instruments perform better on cognitive tests. So if you aren't playing the guitar or the piano or the banjo, maybe it's time you picked it up. I think maybe I'll have to start doing that myself. And the need for us to improve our cognitive abilities is matched by our need to improve our financial literacy. The FINRA Foundation's National Financial Capability Study, they've been studying financial literacy for more than a decade, and they say that our literacy is going down. The average respondent to their quiz were only able to answer half of the 5 financial literacy questions. I'm going to pose some of them to you right here, right now. Let's see how you do. Suppose you've got $100 in a savings account, and the interest rate is 2% per year. After 5 years, how much would be in the account if you left the money to grow? Would you have more than $102? Exactly $102, or less than $102? The correct answer, of course, is more than 102 because of compounding. Imagine that the interest rate on your savings account was 1% a year, and inflation is 2% a year. After 1 year, how much would you be able to buy with the money in your account? More than today? Exactly the same? Or less than today? The answer, of course, is less than today, because the cost of goods would be rising faster than the amount of money you've got. And our third question, tell me whether you think the following statement is true or false. Buying a single company stock usually provides a safer return than a stock mutual fund. True or false? The answer, of course, it's false. Owning a single stock is much riskier than a diversified basket of stocks. And these 3 simple questions, most Americans got the answers wrong. If you don't understand the very basics of compound growth and inflation and diversification, no wonder people are struggling to create wealth in America. So you need to make sure you're pretty good at this. And by being pretty good at this, it'll help demonstrate that you've got good cognitive skills. That will make your life safer and more wealthy as well. This is The Truth About Your Future. One of the things that retirees commonly do, you downsize, right? You don't need that big house with 4 or 5 bedrooms because the kids are grown, they're living on their own, and it's just the 2 of you. You got a big house and a big yard that requires a lot of maintenance, repairs, and upkeep and taxes. The heck with that. In retirement, people downsize. They go to a smaller property, maybe a condo. Let's eliminate all the extraneous costs and all the hassles. You need to make sure, though, that when you're downsizing, you are not overlooking the closing costs. You need to recognize that moving out of your house into another home could cost you 8 to 10% of the price of the new home. And if you're going to move to a 55-plus community, you might incur monthly fees, which are not tax deductible, by the way. Those fees can be as much as $1,000 a month, depending on where you live. You need to recognize that the transition has itself a set of expenses. You're going to pay a real estate agent for the new home. You're going to hire a moving company. You're going to end up buying new furniture or making new arrangements with new doctors, new lawyers, new dentists, new banks with your new location. You're going to incur expenses associated with your transition. Don't ignore them because they may otherwise shock you, causing you to go into credit card debt because you didn't plan appropriately. Make sure you talk to a good financial advisor if you're planning on downsizing. I'm Rick Edelman. This is The Truth About Your Future.
Afraid to look at your financial statements? Shredding them without opening them? It's time for a second opinion from Edelman Financial Engines. Our opinions aren't based on intuition or daily market movements. They're grounded in institutional rigor. And all of our planners are fiduciaries who put your interest above all others. So if you need help managing the ups and downs of this market, we're ready to talk. At Edelman Financial Engines, you get personalized investment recommendations from a dedicated wealth planner who doesn't sell products to earn commissions. So stop shredding those financial statements. Let's take a look together. It's time to get a second opinion. Get your complimentary wealth checkup where you can discuss your financial goals with a wealth planner. Call Edelman Financial Engines at 888-899-4450. That's 888-899-4450. Or visit planefe.com/Rick today.
What do all the greatest innovations have in common? Agents of innovation. Ordinary people who shape the future by putting their money behind the right ideas. Invesco QQQ is a fund that allows you access to innovators of the NASDAQ 100. So you don't have to be an inventor to help create what's next to come. Be an agent of innovation with Invesco QQQ. Learn more at Invesco.com/QQQ. There are risks when investing in ETFs, including possible loss of money. ETFs risks are similar to those of stocks. Investments in the tech sector are subject to greater risk and more volatility than more diversified investments. The NASDAQ 100 Index comprises the 100 largest non-financial companies on the NASDAQ. You can't invest directly into an index. Before investing, carefully read and consider fund investment objectives, risks, charges, expenses, and more in the prospectus at Invesco.com. Invesco Distributors, Inc.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman. Thanks for listening to today's show, and thanks to Bitwise Asset Management for being our sponsor. Rick asked Bitwise to support the show because Bitwise has just one mission: to help you understand and access the opportunities in crypto. As crypto continues to grow in scale and complexity, a trusted guide is more important than ever. That's why Bitwise has built a nationwide team of crypto experts to help you. So take advantage of Bitwise's team. They work closely with financial advisors, institutions, and individual investors just like you. Talk to a Bitwise expert today or sharpen your crypto knowledge with Bitwise's awesome library of content. You'll find great help whether you're a crypto beginner or a financial professional. Crypto has major risks to consider, including the loss of your entire investment. So before investing in crypto funds, visit bitwiseinvestments.com for their library of content and to learn about the risks with these investments. That's bitwiseinvestments.com.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future. We talk often about Alzheimer's disease here on the program, and you know why. It's the number one healthcare crisis in the world. And so I'm very happy to bring onto the program Bonnie Wattles. She is the executive director of HFC, formerly known as Hilarity for Charity. Bonnie, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks so much for having me today.
Tell us about HFC.
So HFC was founded by actor, comedian, writer, filmmaker, producer Seth Rogen and Lauren Miller Rogen, really in response to Lauren's family's history with Alzheimer's disease. When Lauren was just 12, her grandfather had Alzheimer's disease. When she was 18, her grandmother had Alzheimer's disease. And when she was just 25, and when her and Seth had just met, her mother was diagnosed with early onset. Her mom, Adele, was 55 years old. So she's really seen firsthand the devastation of this disease, the amount of care that it requires on the part of family members. And obviously, her and Seth were very devastated by the diagnosis. And I think they found their way to humor and action in the face of this diagnosis for her mom. They had a group of very talented, motivated friends in Hollywood. And in 2012, they threw their very first variety show with Bruno Mars, Mindy Kaling, Aziz Ansari, and have been building the organization ever since.
Alzheimer's, of course, isn't very funny. So talk about how you turn this very serious subject into something that we somehow find a way to laugh about.
So we use comedy to entertain our guests and our donors, and as a way to raise awareness about the disease and elevate the conversation. We also use comedy just in our communication, so that whether you're a caregiver or a family member of somebody who has Alzheimer's, there's some levity and lightness, so it doesn't feel so onerous and so dark.
Talk about how HFC supports the family members of those who are suffering from this terrible disease.
One of our biggest programs is our in-home respite care program. That is a program that sends professional caregivers into the home to alleviate the family caregiver. So families can apply online for a respite grant. To date, we've given over 380,000 hours of care away. Right now, we receive about 150 applications a month for that program, and we can award about 20 to 30% of those applications, primarily due to funding constraints. So if any listeners want to make a donation, we are looking to increase our investment in that program every year because really it's an endless need for families.
Well, the biggest issue, of course, is that the overwhelming majority of caregivers, 70, 80% of them, are family members. They're providing care for free. And that puts a huge strain on families who are having to leave their own jobs to provide care. And a huge number of these folks are themselves older. So you have a 75-year-old providing care for a 75-year-old. And it's a huge challenge emotionally, physically, economically.
You're absolutely right. In addition, the elderly spouses caring for their loved one, we see, people in their 30s and 40s being sandwich generation caregivers. And we're also seeing a number of young people being primary caregivers to their grandparents or their parents. So we have over 30 support groups running today with drop-in support groups 7 days a week. For our ongoing support groups, we match people based on where the need is, whether they're a spouse caring for their spouse or they're a child who has a parent with somebody with Alzheimer's. We found that the impact we're making on caregivers is alleviating the stress, helping them feel more prepared for the caregiving journey, and helping them meet the needs of the patient that they're caring for.
Are people able to go to these support groups online at no cost?
Correct. All of our programming is free.
So you're doing a lot of work to educate young people about Alzheimer's.
Yes, we are. This is a disease that's normally thought of as an older person's disease, but we also know that the hallmarks of the disease are starting to begin in the brain 20 to 30 years before the onset of symptoms. So it's really, really critical that we start taking care of our brains as early as possible. And so we really feel that teaching college students and high school students about what they can do today to start building a healthy brain to prevent this disease tomorrow is critically important.
What can we do to improve brain health and to protect our brain?
So we promote diets that are full of leafy greens, vegetables, fruit, nuts, low-fat dairy, really, modeling the Mediterranean diet. We also promote good quality sleep, 7 to 9 hours a night. We also talk about emotional well-being that includes stress reduction, mindfulness activities, as well as cognitive engagement, learning something new and keeping your brain cognitively engaged. That means for young people staying in school. And finally, exercise is so critically important. About 150 minutes of moderate to rigorous exercise a week.
When we talk to every healthcare specialist, they all say exactly what you just said. It's all about exercise and diet and sleep and stress and socialization. In other words, if you do what Bonnie just said to protect your brain, you will at the same time be protecting all the other systems in your body as well.
You're right. What's good for the heart is also good for the brain.
I remember when I was a kid, we weren't allowed to say cancer because everybody knew that it was a death sentence. We've eliminated the stigma of having cancer, but it now still seems like our society is struggling with folks who have Alzheimer's, cognitive decline broadly. Are you noticing that?
Yeah, I think there's definitely stigma around Alzheimer's disease. And we want to get young people talking about it so that they can talk to their parents and grandparents and friends about it, because we have to bring this disease out of the shadows. And we also have to teach people how to interact with somebody with dementia and how to be more a dementia-friendly society.
So how can people support the work that you're doing at HFC and the support of caregivers?
Sure. Well, one thing, please visit our website. We are hfc.org. If you're a caregiver or family caregiver, we have a monthly newsletter that's rich in resources and caregiving tips.
That's Bonnie Waddles, the executive director of HFC, formerly Hilarity for Charity, hfc.org. Bonnie, thanks so much for being with us on the show today.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Bonnie and I had a much longer conversation here on the show. You can watch, listen, or read the entire dialogue. Just go to thetruth.ayf.com. You're listening to The Truth About Your Future. I'm Rick Edelman. Very happy to tell you, if you missed the news so far, that starting in January, this weekly radio show is going to become a daily podcast. Same content, same great guests and interviews, and I invite you to listen to the daily podcast, and you can subscribe to it right now. Just go wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Apple, Google, and of course my website, thetruthayf.com. Giving you all the information you've grown to love. I'll continue doing that for you, but starting in January as a podcast. My new podcast, The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman, wherever you download your podcasts. Got a lot more to share with you today. Stay with us for more here on The Truth About Your Future.
Meet Schwab Intelligent Income, a simple, modern way to pay yourself from your portfolio. Overcome the complexity of income needs in retirement with automated tax-smart withdrawals that you can start, stop, or adjust at any time without penalty. Plus ongoing monitoring, so you'll always know where you stand. And since lower fees means more money for you to invest, you pay no advisory fee. Available with Schwab Intelligent Portfolios. Visit schwab.com/intelligent income, a modern approach to wealth management.
The Truth About Your Future is sponsored by Global X ETFs. You tune in every week to hear Rick Edelman tackle the personal finance topics that matter most to investors. And this year, what matters most is market volatility, stubbornly high inflation, and rising interest rates. It's been a lot to grapple with. At Global X ETFs, our income-oriented strategies can be an appealing way to help you position your portfolio during this period of uncertainty and volatility. Our approach goes beyond bonds and traditional fixed income investments. We focus instead on asset classes that offer you income-producing potential that you may not have considered, including MLPs from the energy sector, real estate investment trusts, preferred stocks, covered call strategies, and dividend-paying stocks. We've been providing investors like you with income-oriented investments like these for more than a decade through both bull and bear markets. Come, explore our full range of ETFs and look at our research and more at globalxetfs.com or talk with your financial advisor. Global X ETFs.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman, sponsored by Choice. If you want more control over how you invest your money, you need to check out Choice. Choice makes it easy for you to invest in Bitcoin and other crypto assets in your retirement account. You can transfer your existing IRA, roll over an old 401k, or start fresh with a new investment. There are no hidden fees or account minimums, just more choice in how you invest your money. You can open a deductible or Roth IRA and invest in Bitcoin, crypto, stocks, ETFs, gold, real estate, and more, all in a single account. Don't let your old bank or brokerage firm limit what you're allowed to invest in. Do what Rick did and take control of your future by heading on over to retirewithchoice.com/Rick. That's retirewithchoice.com/Rick, or simply search Choice IRA in the App Store or Google Play Store on your iPhone or Android device. It's your money. It should be your choice. retirewithchoice.com/Rick.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future. You know, we talk about crypto very often on this program for obvious reasons. I'm a big fan. I'm convinced that it's the single greatest wealth building opportunity of this and next decade. But it's also totally new, totally different. And that's why there's so much confusion, but there's a huge amount of curiosity as well. It's why I wrote my book, The Truth About Crypto. And I can tell you one of the most common, one of the most persistent questions: what is the government going to do about this? Well, I'm going to give you the definitive opportunity for getting the answer, and it's going to be brought to us by Perry Ann Boring. Perry Ann is the founder and CEO of the Chamber of Digital Commerce, which you can reach at digitalchamber.org. Perry Ann, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Rick. It's great to be here.
For those who don't know Perry Ann, she was named one of America's top 50 women in tech by Forbes and one of the 10 most influential people in blockchain by CoinDesk. I get calls all the time from advisors and investors asking, when are we going to see a Bitcoin ETF? And you just released a report from the Chamber called The Crypto Conundrum. So tell us about the report.
Yeah, so this really is one of the biggest conundrums in the industry today, especially now that we have 16% of Americans already own a form of cryptocurrency today. But the problem is that they're not able to have access to it through their financial advisors. And that is totally shameful. So we spent months studying this, and we interviewed over 30 participants to do a comprehensive study of what's happened over the past 10 years. It was 2013 that the first company, it was the Winklevoss twins, that tried to bring a spot Bitcoin ETF to market. The industry's tried many times and put a lot of work into it. Today, we still don't have one. It's a long story, but I'll just kind of give you the spoilers. It's a political problem. This has nothing to do with investor protections. This has nothing to do with the concerns of market manipulation or potential fraudulent activity happening on exchange. It's a political issue. At the end of the day, the Securities and Exchange Commission is run by somebody who has a very aggressive agenda, who wants to have oversight of the crypto exchanges. And he said this himself in congressional testimony when he was testifying in the Senate Banking Committee. He said he would be more comfortable with a spot Bitcoin ETF if Congress would give him jurisdiction over the Bitcoin markets. But I guess, what do you expect from Washington?
Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs. It's gotten to the point that Grayscale has filed a lawsuit against the SEC, accusing them of violating their own rules in the evaluation of these applications, that they are acting capriciously in opposition of what the law requires them to do. What can you tell us about the status of that lawsuit right now?
Yeah, so we interviewed Grayscale as a part of our study, and they allege that the Securities and Exchange Commission is acting arbitrarily and capricious, which is a violation of the Administrative Procedures Act. I think it's really interesting when you have the regulators, they want to impose new rules on you, but then they don't want to follow the rules that apply to them. We really document how they have acted outside of their authority as a merit regulator. And we think it's really important as an advocacy organization that we ensure that the policymakers are following their own guidelines and operating within their statutory authority.
So given that this is the stance of Gary Gensler, the chair of the SEC, what do you see could be done other than simply waiting for his term of office to expire?
Yeah, I mean, we are in a little bit of a holding pattern. So what do you do when you are at this impasse? So there's two paths. One is litigation. The other option is Congress. So part of our efforts is to help educate our members of Congress on what's happening. And we have delivered this report to over 100 members of Congress so far, both Democrats and Republicans. And I will tell you, we have bipartisan support, Republicans and Democrats, that see this as truly an atrocity and want to use their oversight authority to address this. So I think in the not so distant future, maybe in the new Congress, we will start to see more conversations on Capitol Hill. So there's a lot of interest, and this is something that we're pushing to make a priority.
And in the meantime, it is an atrocious situation and an ironic one because the SEC is designed first and foremost for consumer protection. And their denial of a Bitcoin ETF is actually harming investors rather than protecting them, because it's like prohibition in the 1930s. When they made drinking alcohol illegal, it didn't stop people from drinking. It just forced them into speakeasies where they drank rot gut and got sick, paying too much for it. That's what's happening now. People want to buy an ETF. It's the most popular investment vehicle in the country, most frequently used by financial advisors. They're inexpensive, they're liquid, they're transparent. Everybody enjoys the ETF structure. And that's naturally the way most investors want to buy Bitcoin, and it's the way most advisors want to provide that to their clients. In the absence of this, it's forcing advisors to say to the clients, I can't help you, and it's forcing the clients to go elsewhere on their own, where they're all too often falling victim to scams and frauds because they don't know what they're doing. And so the SEC, which is saying they're trying to protect consumers, are actually hurting them by denying opportunity to have an ETF.
Well, you definitely speak our language, Rick. You summarized that very well. It's classic Washington doublespeak. This has all been done in the name of investor protections, but it's very obvious at this point that this is harming investors. So it's absolutely essential that we get a spot Bitcoin ETF and other crypto ETFs to market so retail investors can invest in this new and innovative asset class with the full protection of the federal securities laws that they're currently being denied.
Let me shift the subject here. Time Magazine wrote a really big story that they called Crypto Goes to Washington. And it talked about how the Chamber of Digital Commerce, which, Perry-Ann, you are the CEO and founder of, has been working to put digital assets in front of DC policymakers. In fact, as you know, I led a panel at your conference this past spring where Senators Gillibrand and Lummis, who are co-sponsoring major legislation on crypto, gave a presentation. Your event was the biggest policy program of the year in DC yet. Hundreds of people were there, senators, members of the House, the executive branch. So clearly there's an awareness in Capitol Hill. There's an engagement in it. There's curiosity. There's widespread support.
Yeah, you mentioned that. It's really important that we are educating our public policymakers. This is what we sought out to do when we first launched the Chamber of Digital Commerce in 2014. I have the benefit of being in this space for going on a decade now, and we've faced really the same issues. We just have new iterations of them today. Back in 2013, the industry faced pretty significant narrative issues after the Mt. Gox collapse and the Silk Road takedown. Everybody in Washington thought this was not serious. This is a total joke. Bitcoin's just the currency of criminals, or it died, it was hacked. Mt. Gox failed, Bitcoin failed. That's what people thought. And we've come a long way since then. Today, we have a lot of issues with these purported lack of investor protections or lack of consumer protections. Policymakers believe that there's a lot of market manipulation happening on the exchanges. And we've been through these cycles before in different periods of the industry. Education is absolutely key. According to the White House, 16% of Americans own cryptocurrency today. So as adoption increases, I think we will see more people who serve in office, particularly in elected offices, are supporters of this technology. But we have a lot of work to do to combat these negative narratives and just this misinformation. I think there are intentional disinformation campaigns to lead people astray. You really got to do your research. Don't take something just based on what you see in the headlines. And then it's our job as the constituency to educate our policymakers about what the private sector is doing and about the promise of this technology. Because if we don't do it, there's nobody else to do it. No one's going to do this work for us.
You know, it's really interesting. You and I both began our journey down the rabbit hole of crypto back in 2014. And over these years, I've come upon an awful lot of folks who are in one camp or the other. They're the Bitcoin believers or the Bitcoin haters. And some are still in the middle, not sure what all this means. What I have discovered, rather interestingly, is that a lot of folks who used to be Bitcoin haters have changed their view. They've changed their opinion as they've learned more, and they are now Bitcoin supporters. What I've never seen, though, in all the years I've been involved in crypto, I have never seen someone who's favorable change their mind to become unfavorable. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, so there's a quote that I've shared over the years from one of our advisory board members who used to be the head of the criminal division of the Department of Justice, now works in private practice and represents companies in the crypto space. And he said, I've met a lot of people who know a lot about Bitcoin, and I've met a lot of people who are Bitcoin skeptics, but I've never met someone that knows a lot about Bitcoin and is a skeptic. So that's what we're in the business of doing, is inspiring people to want to know more, to go to a deeper level of understanding so they can make more educated and informed decisions as their policy making. So when we look across the Congress, we've got a couple dozen members of the blockchain caucus, the Congressional Blockchain Caucus. So these are people who are really kind of ground zero for blockchain policy, and I would say are champions on the Hill, and they're bipartisan, so it's equal Republicans and Democrats in the caucus. They've been really intentional to do that. So it's about that engagement, it's about building relationships, it's about education, and that is the journey that we're on today.
I want to ask you one final question, Perry Ann. If you had a magic wand, you could somehow go back and change something over the last 8 years in the world of crypto, what would it be?
So if there's one thing I could change or had done differently over the past 8 years, I would love to see the Federal Reserve embrace Bitcoin. In my opinion, this is going to be a global reserve asset over my generation. I think that will happen slowly. And I think it's really important for the national security of our country that we have an economic interest in this new and innovative monetary system.
That's Perry Ann Boring, the founder and CEO of the Chamber of Digital Commerce. And you can learn more about what Perry Ann and her team are doing by going to digitalchamber.org. Perry Ann, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks so much, Rick. Great to be here.
Perry Ann and I actually spoke for almost a half hour. If you'd like to read, watch, or listen to the entire conversation, just visit thetruth.com.
You're listening to The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman. Listening to The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman. Thanks for listening to today's show. And thanks to Bitwise Asset Management for being our sponsor. Rick asked Bitwise to support the show because Bitwise has just one mission: to help you understand and access the opportunities in crypto. As crypto continues to grow in scale and complexity, a trusted guide is more important than ever. That's why Bitwise has built a nationwide team of crypto experts to help you. So take advantage of Bitwise's team. They work closely with financial advisors, institutions, and individual investors just like you. Talk to a Bitwise expert today, or sharpen your crypto knowledge with Bitwise's awesome library of content. You'll find great help, whether you're a crypto beginner or a financial professional. Crypto has major risks to consider, including the loss of your entire investment. So before investing in crypto funds, visit bitwiseinvestments.com for their library of content and to learn about the risks with these investments. That's bitwiseinvestments.com.
The Truth About Your Future is sponsored by Global X ETFs. You tune in every week to hear Rick Edelman tackle the personal finance topics that matter most to investors. And this year, what matters most is market volatility, stubbornly high inflation, and rising interest rates. It's been a lot to grapple with. At Global X ETFs, our income-oriented strategies can be an appealing way to help you position your portfolio during this period of uncertainty and volatility. Our approach goes beyond bonds and traditional fixed income investments. We focus instead on asset classes that offer you income-producing potential that you may not have considered, including MLPs from the energy sector, real estate investment trusts, preferred stocks, covered call strategies, and dividend-paying stocks. We've been providing investors like you with income-oriented investments like these for more than a decade through both bull and bear markets. Come, explore our full range of ETFs and look at our research and more at globalxetfs.com or talk with your financial advisor. Global X ETFs.
You've been planning for your retirement for some time, but right now, things may not be going according to plan. If your retirement timeline is shifting due to market performance, it's time for a second opinion. Edelman Financial Engines can help answer questions like when to take Social Security and how you may be able to turn your savings into the retirement income you need. You don't want to postpone retirement. Now is the time to talk to a dedicated wealth planner. At Edelman Financial Engines, you get personalized investment recommendations. Our approach is backed by institutional rigor. We model over 38,000 securities monthly, so we can better stress test your portfolio through thousands of scenarios. And our planners don't sell products to earn commissions. Get your complimentary wealth checkup today, where you can discuss your financial goals with a wealth planner. Call Edelman Financial Engines at 888-899-4450. That's 888-899-4450. Or visit planefe.com/Rick today.
This is the truth about your future, and one clear indication of our future is electric vehicles. Well, you know what? The typical gasoline automobile uses about 65 pounds of copper, but electric automobiles use twice as much, 125 pounds of copper. So we need a whole lot of copper. Well, Arizona's got a copper mine, a pretty big one. It's 60 miles east of Phoenix. And it has 18 million tons of copper in it. That's enough to build 275 million automobiles. That's a pretty big deal. And it's important because Goldman Sachs says that our global demand for copper is going to exceed our supplies in just 2 years, which will cause prices of copper to double. So, well, I'm really glad we got this copper mine in Arizona because that'll help address this issue in a big way. There's a problem, though. Environmentalists don't want anything to do with that copper mine, and the government is shutting down the mine. So that 18 million tons is going to remain underground. We're not going to have access to it. We're not going to build a couple of 100 million cars based on it. This is a continuing trend. You've heard of NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard. Well, NIMBY is now giving way to something else. Because you could argue, wait a minute, nobody lives in the desert of Arizona. This thing's 60 miles east of Phoenix in the middle of nowhere. So whose backyard is anybody worried about? Well, NIMBY, not in my backyard, is giving way to NOTE. Not over there either. Well, wait a minute, not over there either. There's no there over there. That's still in the middle of nowhere. And what do you care if you don't even live in the state of Arizona? What if you live in Europe? Why are you complaining about this? That's giving way to something called banana. Build absolutely nothing anywhere near anyone. So I don't care what you're talking about. No matter where it is on the planet, the answer is no. And as long as this kind of political wind is prevailing, we're going to have a challenge meeting the needs of our economy and our human resources. It's going to be a challenge for the future as we politically duke this out. I'm really glad you're tuning into the show, The Truth About Your Future. And one of the big things we're focusing on, of course, is retirement because, well, that's in your future. It's where we're all going to end up, right? In retirement, we've got 3 stages. We've got to save money to get us there. We've got to manage our money that we're already saving. And then we're going to have to generate income from the money that we've saved. Are you saving, managing, and distributing the money correctly? Well, that's what my new master class is going to teach you. That's right. It's brand new. Achieving Retirement Security in the 21st Century. You can watch online anytime you like. It's free, and you can access it at my website, thetruthayf.com. Let me ask you a question. How do you tip when you don't carry cash? Wyndham Hotels now lets you use a mobile app so you can tip their staff. Hilton is also testing cashless tipping. You use your phone to click a QR code. You've got to pay 8% when using the app. The money goes directly to an employee's debit card. This is just another illustration of how technology is altering how we engage in our daily activities. And the argument that you need cash, it's going away pretty quick. Everything is going digital. By the way, how much should you tip when you're traveling? The general guidelines are that if you're jumping on one of those hotel courtesy shuttle buses, you should tip the driver anywhere from $1 to $5, plus $1 a bag if they're helping you load into the back. If you're using the valet, $1 to $5 when your car gets delivered. You don't pay them anything when they take your car away. If you're going to have a bell staff take your luggage to your room, $1 to $5 per bag. Housekeeping. You should leave $1 to $5 per night. If you're staying there for 5 nights, don't leave $25 when you leave. Instead, leave $5 per day because you might have a different housekeeper each day of your stay. And if you turn to the concierge for assistance with reservations or advice or help, $5 and up, depending on the complexity of the ask. And room delivery, $1 per item. We need to recognize that just because we're not carrying cash, that doesn't alleviate ourselves of the obligation to make sure that we are compensating those who are providing personal services to us. I'm Rick Edelman. Even though there's no cash in your future, tipping will be. Time now for everybody's favorite segment of the program, Visit by my wife, Jean Edelman. Jean is a student of the healing arts, Reiki, traditional Chinese medicine, homeopathy, acupuncture, and of course, macrobiotic and plant-based cooking. Here's Jean.
Great to be with you this week. This week, my word is integrity. As we are coming to the last weeks and days and hours of the year, I think it's time to really think about our integrity. What are our true values and what's important to us in our life? When we are presented with choices, do we choose our integrity or do we always compromise? The rewarding life is an authentic life, and that is the one where we can be our true selves and speak what is important to us. And so our action item for this week is to think about times when we have compromised our beliefs, our integrity. How did we feel? Was there fear if we were going to speak up? And what prevented us from speaking up? This life, our journey is about learning and learning about ourselves. And there's going to be ups and downs and sideways and backwards. It's going to be all over the place. But the goal is to be our true, authentic self. And especially as we're here in the end of the year when we're getting tugged in so many directions and places, we need to stop and really figure out what's important to us. What do we want to put our energy into? Where do we want to spend our time? Integrity. So my word of the week is value. The V is for valor, courage, because it takes a lot to speak up and share our deepest feelings. The A is for achieve. A, successful conclusion. This is what we want. The L is for lead, to guide. In most situations, we need a leader. And the leader is the one that we know is standing in their truth and knows what they want and has a direction for us. And so be the leader. The U is for unique. We are one of a kind, extraordinary, and we need each other. And we need to speak and share what's important to each other so that we can understand each other a little bit better. The E is to endorse, to support and affirm. Who are we at the most important moments in our life? If we're being pulled around, we don't have an answer to that question. And so it's time to stop, put our feet firmly on the ground, and figure that out. And then the S is for shield, to protect and defend. We need to defend ourselves from hurtful and harmful and stress and too much time here or there and things that are not important to us. And so build that shield of integrity, of self-knowledge, of knowing what's important to ourselves, of where we want to spend our time, who we want to spend our time with. Build that shield and know when we want to deflect and when we want to accept. Remember, if we're not caring for ourselves, we cannot care for others. Have a beautiful week, everyone.
If you're enjoying Jean's Words of the Week, you can get a list of them and all of her segments at thetruth.ayf.com.
The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman is sponsored by Charles Schwab. Schwab's passion for serving clients is more than standard practice. It's part of who they are. With transparent pricing, 24/7 live support, and a satisfaction guarantee, the people at Schwab go the extra mile to help you on your investing journey. They're not just financial people, they're people too. Learn more at schwab.com/whyschwab. That's schwab.com/whyschwab.
Allow us to introduce you to Tom, an ordinary person who helped shape the future by putting his money behind the right ideas. Tom enjoys tending to his tomato garden and is currently developing the perfect blend for his homemade spaghetti sauce. Tom is also accessing companies that help change the course of the aerospace industry by investing in Invesco QQQ. Invesco QQQ is a fund that allows you access to innovators of the NASDAQ 100, which goes to show you don't have to be a rocket scientist to help push progress forward. Become an agent of innovation. Learn more at Invesco.com/QQQ. There are risks when investing in ETFs, including possible loss of money. ETFs risks are similar to those of stocks. Investments in the tech sector are subject to greater risk and more volatility than more diversified investments. The NASDAQ 100 index comprises the 100 largest non-financial companies on the NASDAQ. You can't invest directly into an index. Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Visit Invesco.com for a prospectus with this information. Read it carefully before investing.
That's it for this week. I'll be with you again next week. If you missed any of the broadcast, you can listen to the whole podcast. You can download it wherever you get your favorite podcasts, as well as my website, thetruthayf.com. And starting in January, this radio show will be exclusively a podcast, and in fact, a daily podcast. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
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 I'm sorry, what? What part didn't you understand? The buh or the bye? Bye-bye.
The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman has been brought to you by Global X ETFs, dedicated to providing investors with unexplored and intelligent solutions. And by Bitwise, a trusted guide in crypto has never mattered more. Connect with their dedicated team of crypto experts nationwide at bitwiseinvestments.com. And by Invesco QQQ, a fund that allows you to access the innovators of the NASDAQ 100. Invesco.com. Stay tuned for Everyday Wealth with Soledad O'Brien and Gene Chatsky from Edelman Financial Engines. Everydaywealth.com/radio. EFE and The Truth About Your Future with Rick Edelman are unaffiliated entities.
Get the truth about your future every weekend with Rick Edelman. It's thetruthayf.com.